Please join me in welcoming the keynote speaker.
All right, we are getting going with broadcast. A little technical difficulties, but here we go. With the commemoration of 9/11 going down at fire station number 3.
Colonel Brendan Deaver is a 25-year service member of the U.S. Army and is currently the Army Intelligence Center of Excellence Chief of Staff. Prior to this assignment, Colonel Deaver served as the 111th MI Brigade Commander at Fort Huachuca. Colonel Deaver's professional military education includes the National War College, where he earned a Master of Science in National Security Strategy. He holds a Master of Business Administration. During his service, Colonel Deaver had several combat deployments for both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Colonel Deaver's awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Joint Service Achievement, Expert Infantry Badge, Ranger Tab, Pathfinder Badge, and Parachutist Badge. Finally, Colonel Deaver is a devoted husband and father of 4 children. Colonel Deaver.
So first, thank you for the introduction. I always, when I hear a bio, it always makes me sit there and think, I can't believe I have that on paper somewhere. But really appreciate you sharing the most important part about me, and that being a devoted husband and father, which as I enter the twilight years of my military career has become more and more important to me, and I'm grateful for that. Let me first thank those that are in attendance, our distinguished guests that were recognized earlier. There's a crowd here that I see sometimes regularly at different events, so at the Army, with the city, and it amazes me every time when I get to stand shoulder to shoulder with these great individuals in law enforcement, in the fire service, in our city leadership, here in our garrison commander and other teams there at Fort Huachuca. It's an honor for me to be able to associate with such great leaders that this community has. And I don't know if I've been a lot of places. It's not completely unique here, but I would argue that it's as good here as it is anywhere. So I'm grateful for that. And I really want to thank my brother Brad. So for those of you who don't know the connection, my brother Brad, the deputy fire chief, and we're brothers. We grew up together, a few years apart. I'm the oldest. He's the tallest. I inherited my dad's height, so that's what I have. But I still have the old brother strength. So when it comes to that, and Brad decided that I would have the opportunity to speak, and he invited me, and I'm grateful for that. I've been the beneficiary of being able to attend several of these, and I've always found them to be truly inspiring. And then when he asked me to speak, I realized, well, that's going to put some pressure on me. So while I'm not going to promise the inspirational remarks that you may have heard in the past, I'm going to do my best. As I was preparing these remarks, I had a conversation with my mother, Nancy Deaver, who lives here in St. David in the community still, and she reminded me that something I didn't realize before, and that is that my father, before he passed away, the very last public engagement that he had was to give a speech on 9/11 at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery. I wasn't there. I didn't hear it. She looked for notes. She told me a little bit about it, but I began to think about what that must have been, what he must have said. And I can tell you, I can hear his voice. I can picture him describing the heroism, the bravery, the honor, the sadness, the devotion of that day as he described how those heroes responded to the sounds of the guns, not quite literally at that point, but running into those burning buildings. I haven't heard my father's voice in 13 years, but if I pause, I think I know exactly how it would have sounded, and I'm going to do my best today. So here's a few thoughts. And so for most of us here today, if you're over the age of probably 30, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, depending where, remember exactly where we were on September 11th, 2001. For me, I was in the Army. I was in the field. The Army likes to say we're out in the field. We'd been in a long, probably about a 30-day training event. We were tired. We were coming back in. We were excited to be back in. We were turning in weapons, cleaning our equipment, getting ready to go home for a weekend. You don't know if it was a weekend, middle of the week. You lose time when you're in the field. But in any case, there we were, and somebody came out of our company area, announcing that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center. And of course, like most of us, my first interaction was, wow, how did that happen? And picturing a small Cessna or something flying astray into the building. But quickly became evident it was more than that. And somebody found, which back in those days, certainly didn't have phones with TV on them. But somebody found a little roller tray with a TV that was plugged in and brought it down to where we were. And we were watching the building burn when the second plane struck. And at that moment, all of us, certainly while wearing the uniform, knew that something had profoundly changed and that we were at war. And for a nation and a people who, and certainly those of us serving who had joined the Army at a time of relative peace, we had deployments and we were 10 years removed from Desert Storm, but didn't really have that concept, that understanding of what was about to happen. And so, like most of you, watched in both horror and awe at the acts of bravery that happened that day. Now, I'll acknowledge that I've been a little casual at times approaching this anniversary. I mean, it's been a lot of years. And despite the fact that this day has directly shaped a significant portion of my life as an Army officer, it's easy to think that, well, we all remember, and how could we forget? But just yesterday, I had the opportunity to have an engagement out at St. David High School, just 2 miles down the road. The engagement wasn't specifically about September 11th, but a leadership engagement with the students there, and I shared some things about 9/11, and I realized that in that audience of high school students, that not only were not any of them born that day, but they were 10 years later before they were born, and in some cases, parents that were very young, and they've heard, read, studied, seen videos. Not their fault they're young, and there's some in the audience here today. You just weren't there. And I think about my grandparents' generation with a day that would live in infamy in December 7, 1941, and me growing up studying that, learning about it, knowing of its importance, but it couldn't have had the same impact on me as it did on my grandfather, who served in World War II following that event. And so I am grateful that we take the time for events like this to pause. We tell the stories, we feel the feelings all over again, and we help those who weren't there understand what it really meant. And as I think about those brave responders, the first responders, fire crews, police officers, servicemen and women, others who rushed into the buildings that would crumble, the fire, the destruction, and the death is something so immense it's difficult for anybody to comprehend if you weren't there. And I'm filled with an immense sense of pride and gratitude. And I think also about those servicemen and women who found themselves on foreign soil, laying down their lives in pursuit of justice, attempting to take a fight to an enemy so that this didn't happen again. And I've been privileged to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the best of them. Some of them never returned, and others have been lost in the ensuing years to an invisible enemy even more insidious. It's sometimes easy in hindsight to question decisions that saw us bury so many, both on that day, September 11th, and the response to the attack on the towers and the Pentagon, and in the years in the war that followed. It's not my place or purpose to question decisions, but I would like to highlight something that stands out to me, and it was a speech by Ronald Reagan. It was a Memorial Day speech, talking about the servicemen at the time, Marines, not long after the tragic events that the attack on their barracks in those years in the 80s. But Ronald Reagan's message could have just as easily been written about the responders of 9/11. Here's what he said. Sometime back, I received in the name of our country the bodies of 4 Marines who had died while on active duty. I said then that there's a special sadness that accompanies the death of a serviceman. For we're never quite good enough for them, not really, we can't be, because what they gave us is beyond our powers to repay. And so when a serviceman dies, it's a tear in the fabric, a break in the whole, and all we can do is remember. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers he was referring to in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray-haired, but most of them were boys. When they died, they gave up their lives, the one that they gave up 2 lives, the one that they were living and the one that they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands, fathers, grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. All we can do is remember. Now, for those of us who wear a uniform, and I look around here and see all those different uniforms, and it was frankly inspiring to see a color guard with those agencies and military, to see that connection. I mean, that's something. It's a life. It's not just a job. It's a life. It's a way of life. And I know all of you who do that know that. And I would argue that those who died responding to these horrific attacks, while they certainly didn't want to, and didn't plan to, didn't expect it, were prepared. Their training prepared them, just like it does those in uniform who go to war, for that eventuality, that I might have to lay my life down for somebody else, to pull them from a burning building, to stand in the way of line of fire, to respond to an event like that. And I being one who's been privileged to do that, I acknowledge that, and I have been thanked many times in my life. Frankly, the gratitude that has been extended to me personally and to those I've served with is amazing. It absolutely boggles my mind, the devotion that the members of this nation, this community, certainly have demonstrated. But I think it's also important to stop and think about some other heroes of that day. And I know Mayor McCaw, when he talked about Flight 93, we know this story. But what stands out to me is the unique situation of a group of people who had no training, no expectation of acting heroic, doing something out in the call of duty that might require them to lay down their lives, but an act so brave that again, it boggles the mind. And I wanted to share just briefly a couple things about that when I think about Flight 93. One, from some remarks by President George W. Bush when he talked on September 11th in 2021, so 20 years after the event. He said, at a time when some viewed the rising generation as individualistic and decadent, he was referring to the past. I saw young people embrace an ethic of service and rise to selfless action. That is the nation I know. This is not mere nostalgia. This is the truest version of ourselves. It is what we have been, and it's what we can be again. 20 years ago, terrorists chose a random group of Americans on a routine flight to be collateral damage in a spectacular act of terror. The 33 passengers and 7 crew of Flight 93 could have been any group of citizens selected by fate. In that sense, they stood for all of us. The terrorists soon discovered that a random group of Americans is an exceptional group of people. Facing an impossible circumstance, they comforted their loved ones by phone, braced each other for action, and defeated the designs of evil. These Americans were brave, strong, and united in ways that shocked the terrorists, but should not surprise any of us. This is the nation we know, and whenever we need hope and inspiration, we can look to the skies and remember. And I'll wrap up my remarks tonight by going back to something that, as I was reviewing these and read the transcripts of the phone call between Todd Beamer and the operator Lisa, stood out to me. And I won't read all of them, but I'm going to pick up in the middle. Todd, hello Lisa. Lisa, are you there? Yes, Todd, I'm here. I made a phone call to the FBI. Agent Goodwin is on the line and we'll be talking to you as well. Todd, the others all know that this isn't your normal hijacking. Jeremy called his wife again on his cell phone. She told him more about the World Trade Center and all. Agent Goodwin, hello Todd, this is Agent Goodwin with the FBI. We've been monitoring your flight. Your plane is on a course for Washington, D.C. These terrorists sent 2 planes into the World Trade Center and 1 plane into the Pentagon. Our best guess is they plan to fly your plane into either the White House or the United States Capitol building. Todd, I understand. Hold on. I'll be right back. Lisa, Mr. Goodwin, how much time do they have before they get to Washington? Agent Goodwin, not long, ma'am. They changed course over Cleveland. They're approaching Pittsburgh now. Washington may be 20 minutes away. Todd returns. The plane seems to be changing directions just a little. It's getting pretty rough up here. The plane is flying really erratic. We're not going to make it out of here. Listen to me. I want you to hear this. I've talked with the others. We've decided that we would not be pawns in these hijackers' suicidal plot. Lisa, Todd, what are you going to do? Todd, we've hatched a plan. 4 of us are going to rush the hijacker with a bomb. After we take him out, we'll break into the cockpit. A stewardess is getting some boiling water to throw on the hijackers at the control. We'll get them, and we'll take them out. Lisa, will you do one last thing for me? Lisa, yes, what is it? Would you pray with me? And Lisa and Todd recite the Lord's Prayer together. And then Todd. God help me. Jesus help me. Are you guys ready? Let's roll. So to the city, to the Vista Fire Department, schools today, and all those others around our nation who have organized memorials, moments of silence, and other events to pause for a moment on this day, I want to say thank you. You're helping us all remember. And I would echo the words of Kipling in his recessional. Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget.
Every year we come together to memorialize 3 responders that lost their life either during 9/11 or post 9/11. And every year I'm humbled by the response of the public, so thank you very much for attending. This year's ringing of the bell will be in honor of FDNY Fire Chief Peter J. Gansey, Jr., FDNY firefighter Stephen Siller, assigned to Squad 1. We will also be honoring NYPD Detective John Edgar. John was a first responder to the rescue efforts who has since died of illness attributed to his work at Ground Zero. Our first honoree, Chief Peter J. Gansey, Jr. Chief Gansey was the highest-ranking uniformed officer to be killed on September 11, 2001. On the morning of the attacks, Chief Gansey was scheduled for jury duty, but immediately, upon learning that the American Airlines Flight 11 had struck the North Tower, he and his team raced to the scene from their office in downtown Brooklyn. They arrived in less than 10 minutes, just in time to see United Airlines Flight 175 hit the South Tower. Chief Gansey set up a command post and personally led the response. He ordered his men to establish a new, safer command post further away from the buildings. And he also instructed then Mayor Rudy Giuliani and other officials to clear the area, as it was apparent the North Tower would collapse. Despite giving these orders, Chief Gansey chose to remain on the scene, famously stating, "I'm not leaving my men." He was standing in front of the North Tower directing rescue efforts with his radio when the building collapsed at 10:28, killing him. Chief Gansey's body was later recovered from beneath the rubble. Chief Gansey was a 33-year veteran of the FDNY and was posthumously honored for his bravery and leadership on that day. The FDNY renamed their top medal award for bravery to the Peter J. Gansey Jr. Medal. His actions on that day are credited with saving thousands of lives. Chief Gansey is survived by his wife, Kathleen, his two sons, Peter III and Christopher, both of which are now FDNY firefighters, and his daughter, Danielle. Our second honoree of the evening, FDNY firefighter Stephen Gerald Siller. On September 11, 2001, Stephen, who was assigned to Brooklyn Squad 1, had just finished his shift and was on his way to play golf with his brothers when he got the word over his scanner of a plane hitting the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Upon hearing the news, Stephen called his wife, Sally, and asked her to tell his brothers that he would catch up with them later. He returned to Squad 1 to get his gear. Stephen drove his truck to the entrance of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, but it had already been closed for security purposes. Determined to carry out his duty, he strapped 60 pounds of gear to his back and ran on foot through the tunnel to the Twin Towers, where he gave up his life while saving others. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation honors FDNY firefighter Stephen Siller by providing mortgage-free homes to families of fallen first responders and military heroes, building smart homes for catastrophically injured veterans and first responders, and working to end veteran homelessness. Founded in 2002, the foundation was created in memory of Stephen after his story of running through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel with 60 pounds of gear to reach the World Trade Center. The organization hosts events like the annual Tunnel to Towers 5K run and walk to raise funds and awareness for this mission. Stephen is survived by his wife, Sally, and 5 children. The last individual I'll be recognizing solidifies the need to never forget these attacks and the obligation we must meet every year and pay respect. As of September this year, more than 370 FDNY firefighters have died from their 9/11 injuries and illnesses. As a reminder, 343 firefighters were killed on September 11th, and now we have surpassed those tragic numbers. As of March of 2024, more than 130,000 people were enrolled in the World Trade Center Health Program. More than 37,000 first responders and survivors have World Trade Center Health Certified cancers. It is to these people we must live up to the phrase, never forget. This year's post 9/11 honoree is NYPD Detective John J. Edgar, shield number 7149. John was a highly decorated detective second grade for the NYPD. John was and always will remain a proud member of the NYPD. His family roots in policing started many years ago. He often expressed how proud he was to be part of the family tradition and dedication of law enforcement, which totals in excess of 200 years and counting. After his academy, John went to Brooklyn North Gang Unit and then to Brooklyn North Narcotics. John was involved with the Firearms Investigations Unit and was also currently assigned as an active worker for the FBI and NYPD Joint Organized Crime Task Force. John, unfortunately, at the age of 52, succumbed to his illness sustained during his time contributing to the rescue and relief efforts at Ground Zero. Detective John J. Edgar died on April 19, 2025. John is survived by his mother, Barbara Edgar. Striking the 4 5s. The sound of the bell holds special significance for firefighters. Historically, the toll of the bell summoned members to the station, signaled the beginning of a shift, notified departments of a call for help, and indicated a call was completed and the unit had returned to the station. Departments also sounded a series of bells when a firefighter had died in the line of duty to alert all members that a comrade had made the ultimate sacrifice. One of the most meaningful series of bells is commonly called striking the 4 5s. The fire service is rich with ceremony, custom, and tradition. Our custom of rendering final honors has its origins in the fire department of the city of New York, where many years ago, long before the advent of radios and pagers, fire alarms and daily announcements were dispatched from central headquarters to outlying firehouses by a system of bell commands and telegraph. Each different type of alarm or announcement would have its own number and series of bell strikes. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, headquarters would transmit 5 bell strikes, repeated in 4 series, with a slight pause between each series, followed by the announcement. This was done as long ago as 1865 in the New York City Fire Department to inform the rank and file of the death of President Abraham Lincoln. The custom has continued down to present day. Engineer French, please transmit the signal 5555 for FDNY Fire Chief Peter J. Gansey, Jr., FDNY Firefighter Stephen Siller, and NYPD Detective John Edgar. This concludes our 9/11 ceremony. Thank you very much for attending, and please drive safely.
As you may or may not see, our screens are flashing here. Don't know if that's carrying over on the camera, but we appreciate you watching. That's all for me, Brett Allen, live and local here with Cool FM on this very somber remembrance time of 9/11 here at Fire Station number 3 in Sierra Vista. Thank you all for watching.